Hey everybody, I hope and pray that you're doing well today as we come to our word from the word. And today that word is altars. Altars. Now we're using the ARS because we're talking about the altars that he was building. But we are going to have a kind of play on words today, is that I also want us to understand that there should be an altering going on. So with an ER. So as we're talking about this, you can use either one because you'll see that as we come to an altar in our prayer, there should be a change. There should be something that alters in our lives. Now, today, and finishing up this week, if you're watching daily, still talking about Jacob here in our Genesis prayers, but Genesis chapter 33, we're going to pick up at the end of that chapter. This is Jacob after he'd met Esau and their whole conversation. He moves on. He had gone to Succoth, and then here in verse 18 we pick up says then Jacob came safely to the city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan. Now that right there is a fulfillment of God's promise. He would bring him back safely to the land. When he came from Padan Aram, and he pitched his tent before the city. And he bought the parcel of land where he had pitched his tent from the children of Hamor, Shechem's father, for 100 pieces of money. Then he erected an altar there and called it El Elohe Israel. Now, you might say, well, wait a minute, I didn't really see where it says that he called on the Lord or prayed. But this is, I thought, a fitting end to the week as we talk about him getting there and setting up an altar. Now, there's one thing that some commentators go back and forth about, and I'm kind of leaning on this end. Now, he did make it back to Canaan, but if you go back, it sounds as if, though, that God was telling him to go all the way back to Bethel. Now, we're in chapter 33. Some horrible things happen in chapter 34, and it's not until Jacob arrives in Bethel in chapter 35 that we see that God tells him again, I'm not going to call you Jacob, but we're going to call you Israel. And it's almost as if when he's going against the will of God, he's Jacob, and when he's doing the things of God's will, he is Israel. And we see this with other characters in scriptures we talked about yesterday. But also with this, I want us to see that it is important that in every moment of our lives, in every season of our lives, that we have these altars built up, that we have these memorials built up for us to remember what God has done for us. If you remember, not in our daily studies here recently, but in recent sermons over the years, we've talked about the fact that as Israel had crossed over the Jordan, that they set up memorial stones and said, look, we want to remember how God stopped the water, and we want to be able to remember what he did for us. And so we need to have those memorials set up in our lives. We see this throughout, especially the Old Testament. But today, I really want us to think about, here's the other end, is that yes, he did make it there, as God had promised he would. But if he didn't make it all the way to Bethel, then was he delaying obedience? Now, some of that, like I said, some people will argue back and forth, but he's about 20 to 30 miles from Bethel, where he should be, but he was in a very fertile land of Shechem. And so to think about this, as he's there, he was probably there more for the flocks. He had gone back to the land of Canaan, but even as he set up an altar, had his heart completely altered. And see, it's easy for us to come to God in prayer and seem to be religious and seem to be humbled. But even in those moments, we can still be far from where God would have us to be. And even if it's only a few miles, it can still be, sometimes it seems like it doesn't matter if it's a foot or 100 miles from where God wants us to be. It's still not in his will. When you think about Jonah, he thought he was getting away from God, and it didn't matter. The moment that he began to go, and he was going to go the opposite way of Nineveh, his heart was already gone. It didn't matter how many miles away he got, his heart was already going the wrong direction. But see, today I want you to be thinking about maybe how your prayer life, even maybe this past week, or even looking forward to the future, how can you come to God in prayer and let kind of build up those spiritual altars to just, sacrifice everything of your own. This kind of goes back to yesterday, being adamant about being blessed by God because I want to get rid of everything that has anything to do with me. That I want God to bless me. I want to be the kind of man or woman that God can bless. So with that, I need to change. And see, if you go to chapter 34, you'll see that his daughter is raped, and you see this go on, and it's a horrible situation that goes on, and murder that goes on. I mean, you just have to, there again, I'll just challenge you to read the whole chapter. But to think about this, what could have been avoided had he been in God's will? Had he been in the place that God would have him to be? Now, you know as well as I do that there's plenty of times that we put ourselves in situations that bad things happen. And if we look back, well, if we'd listened to God in the first place, we never would have been there. And I think that's very likely that he could have avoided a lot of pain and suffering if he would have been truly altered by the Lord. Maybe instead of just simply building altars, physical altars, maybe he should have been spiritually altered. Now, you say, now, wait a minute, we're talking about Jacob, the one who wrestled with God. Yes, but he was still a man. Still like you and I, we are flesh, and we're bothered by flesh, and he's an old man at this point, and he's struggling with what's going on. And it's one of those things for us to come to the Lord and be stubborn. It's one of those things to come to the Lord and be adamant that I'm going to remain the way I am. But I pray that today you would come to the Lord in prayer, and your prayer request for your life today would be, God, change in me whatever needs to be changed. Create in me a new heart. As the song says, change my heart, oh God. So today, when you come to the altar of prayer, will you be altered? God bless you, and I pray you have a great, great day.